Good evening. Welcome to the collective committee meeting. This is June the 16th, and we have a number of items upon our agenda. We have a pretty full house here also with residents. And the way that this meeting works right now before 220 changes, and when it does change, it will allow to have public input at the beginning. Right now, public input, I'm sorry to say, is going to be at the end. So thank you for your patience. The very first item that we have on our agenda are the Public Service Committee items. And there's one more thing I wanted to say. There's a new paper that's up here on the desk. And if could you be my Vanna White, please, and hold it up? There's a new paper right here. Yes, you could hold it up right there. Yes, just hold it up so that the audience sees it. If after today's meeting, if there's still some questions you have on a topic, if you just simply put down your contact information, what the topic is, and give it to Ms. Rossmarin. Mrs. Rossmarin is going to keep track of it. She will give it to the department person or to the council person that it would be answered by, to try to get your answers to whatever topic that you're talking about. So, with that said, we're going to start on the very first, and I just put my agenda aside. The very first item has to do with the request for qualifications, which is called an RFQ for Country Club Drive Bridge design. And what has been presented to us by the city engineer is that Country Club Bridge has been graded, and has been graded at a level that it needs to have construction take place. And what the process would be is that there would be a motion to go out for an RFQ, a request for qualifications, at the next meeting. Council members, any comment on this particular one? You've all received additional information. Okay, seeing none, then we will go on to the next one. The next one has to do with the bid award for 2025 Crack Seal Program. So there was a request for bids that came in, and to our city engineer is Specialized Construction, Inc. of Cuyahoga Heights. The estimate would be $85,000, and that includes a $10,000 construction contingency for the add-ons also of 1 through 3. The bid came in for the amount of $62,750. Are there any questions here? This will be on Mondays. It will go through as emergency on the first reading, so we can get moving on it. Crack Seal program for this year. Okay. The next item has to do with the 2025 Water Bundle Project Cooperative Agreement. So the City of Avon Lake and Avon Lake Regional Water work together on some projects. And by doing so, we're able to qualify for very, very low interest rates for grants, for loans. And there might also be some grants involved. So what has happened is that there's a project that we're calling the 2025 Water Bundle Project. 79.8% of it is Avon Lake Regional Water. 20.2% of it is the City of Avon Lake. And it covers the following items. It covers a replacement of over 21,000 linear feet of water main pipe, that's Avon Lake Regional Water, 423 water meters from inside to outside locations, Avon Lake Regional Water, replacement bridge culvert on Electric Boulevard at Hyder Ditch with replacement of water transmission main under the culvert, that's right out here, over 2,200 linear feet of road replacement, that's us, new and or replacement of over 2,300 linear feet of storm sewer pipe, that's the City of Avon Lake, and this will take approximately 2 to 2.5 years to complete. So what we're doing right now is that Monday before us there will be an agreement for Avon Lake Regional Water, the City of Avon Lake, and the Ohio Water Development Authority to work together to put this project together. And that will need to be passed on the first reading so that we can meet the deadlines by the state. And then what happens is that the The legal officer of the city of Avon Lake, which is the mayor, and also the finance director, will need to sign the agreement with the Ohio Water Authority and with Avon Lake Regional Water. So we're going to work together. We're going to go after this money, and the payback doesn't need to begin until the project is finished. That would be like 2020, until 2027 or later. So that's what that particular project is about. Any questions, council members? Yes, Amy?
Were there any grants associated?
My understanding is that, I thought I had that on the first page here, that there's a loan. This particular one does not have a grant. This particular one has low interest loans. Mr. Mayor, do you have any additional information that I might not have?
I believe what you said is correct. I think it's a low-interest loan.
Low interest, very low interest loan. And we have done this before. This is how we did the sewer separations throughout the city. Any further questions? That was a good question. Okay, we will go on then to the next one. The next one is the Ohio Public Works Commission, OPWC, annual application. Every year we need to do this so that we can obtain grants and low interest loans for our road works and for some bridge works and other infrastructure. So the resolution that we would be going forth with on Monday is to authorize the mayor to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission, OPWC, state capital improvement and or local transportation improvement programs, and to execute contracts as required in declaring an emergency. We need to do this so that it gets on the books so that we can participate in the program. Any questions? We do this every year. No? Okay, we're going to move on then. Thank you. Next one, bid award to terminal ready mix. So Mr. Liskovic, when he came with us, started doing something we hadn't done before. And for aggregates and other products that we use in-house, he went out to bid. He was able to get better prices for them. So for this particular one, this is terminal ready mix, and it would be for a Class C product that we would be obtaining. And that would be a first read so that we could go ahead and we could continue going forward. Any questions on this one? Okay, the next one has to do with a bid award to Westview Concrete. Westview Concrete would be for Class C. And MS, it's a mix per yard. Any questions on this one? Okay, seeing none, we will go forward with the next one. A bid award to Holsham Quarries. Holsham Quarries has been awarded a limestone number 8. Any questions on this one? Okay, seeing none, we will go on to the next one. The next one is bid award to Area Aggregates. Area Aggregates would be for limestone. That's a number 1, a number 57, a number 10, a number 304, and number 411. Any questions? Okay. And the last one for in-house a bid is to be awarded to Kokosing Materials. They came in as a low bid for asphalt material, number 301 and number 448. Any questions on this particular one? Yes, sir.
I was just going to state that you may want to say that all these were voted out of your committee, and that's why they're at the CCM for discussion, that we had a lengthy discussion at your committee on the Public Service Committee.
Yeah, absolutely. So Public Service Committee, these are all out of Public Service Committees, and it came out of the Public Service Committee. So first it goes through staff, it goes through the administration, then it goes to Public Service. We had a lengthy discussion, and now it's here. Thank you, Mr. Super. Anybody else? Okay. And now the next one, this also came through our committee. Number 10, a contract administration for Walker Road Phase 5. And this would be for professional services, for construction, observation, which another way you'd call it would be an inspector for the road work. Contract administration for the Walker Road paving project, Phase 5 to Bramhall. And to complete this discussion, this would be in the amount of $80, and it's not to exceed. This is the estimate, not to exceed. And what they did was they broke it down by senior construction inspector, straight time, senior construction inspector overtime, senior project manager, and again, it's not to exceed. Is there any further discussion by council members? Yes, sir, Mr. Shamir.
As I mentioned at the Public Service Committee, I believe since Mr. Chris Howard is the city engineer, as well as an officer of Bram Hall Engineering, he has a conflict of interest in technically qualifying Bram Hall to do the work and awarding the contract. It's not only on this, and I just want to make one comment for everything so we don't delay and go through it again. This applies to this item, number 11 and number 12. And my issue is, what you have is a city employee, which is the city engineer, awarding a contract to a company that he is an officer of. In the total amount, if you take the three items, in the total amount of $591,805, I think that is a clear conflict of interest, and I've mentioned it before, and I'll mention it again. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Ms. Gentry?
The work that's being inspected, that Bram Hall would be doing the inspection, is Bram Hall completing the work to be inspected?
No, they're not doing the construction work, they're only doing the inspection work.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anybody else? Okay, so where I am on this, so that everybody is real clear, because we have difference of opinion, thank goodness for America, right, where we can speak our opinion. We have a city engineer, and the city engineer has a very defined role of what he or she can do. And anything outside of that work, we then ask for a proposal from. And this work is above and beyond what they normally do for the city engineering work. And I'm going to turn this over to the mayor. Perhaps there's additional response that he would like to make.
Well, I think you stated it well. So in our contract with Bram Hall, it's for our daily services, our weekly inspections and plans review and so forth. If we had a fully staffed engineering department, much of this work would be done within that engineering firm. So our contracted service is Bram Hall, but this is outside of our normal contract, so it requires another proposal for council to review and consider to take care of these. And we have, the next three items are phase 5, phase 6 in our road program for next year. All the same idea. These are all proposals for them to do this level of service.
It's not just streets. The city engineer is also involved with all the subdivision reviews that are going on. And anytime that there is something that occurs within our estates, flooding within the city-owned property, they're brought in for all of that grading work too. Okay, yes, sir, Mr. Shamir?
Thank God we are in America and we have many engineering firms out there qualified to do the work. So when you tender a contract, when you put an RFP, we're able to get pricing from different companies to come and do the work. We have made a choice to hire Bram Hall as the city engineer. We haven't made a choice to give direct contracts to Bram Hall on a sole source basis, which is what we're doing. So that is my problem. My problem is not Bram Hall. You've hired Bram Hall, but Bram Hall writes the scope of work, and then technically, if anybody else bids, which I would, if Bram Hall is allowed to bid on the work, no one else will bid because they will say, oh, they're going to just qualify Bram Hall. So it's like Rob Shamir, councilman, has a company out there, Rob Shamir Inc., and you go out there and you award him a contract. That's not correct. That is conflict of interest. Bram Hall Engineering, Mr. Chris Howard, is an officer. And if you look at the contract or the proposal, that same city engineer has signed the document, Christopher L. Howard, P.E., Vice President, Bram Hall, not Christopher Howard, city engineer. You can't wear the same hat and be doing a work that is going to approve technically your work or qualify you to do the work. That's the issue I've got. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to just clarify. They're not inspecting his work. He's inspecting the contractor's work. So when I used to work for architects, and I did the United States, I did the FBI building, that's one of them, for example. I wrote the specs, we went out, we got the contractors, and then I was hired to be the project manager who would then inspect their work to make sure that they weren't cheating on the contract and the specifications that we wrote. So this is done. This is the way we do it in this northwest eastern Ohio. Okay, any further discussion? Mr. Zuber?
Yeah, just if we could have the law director put something together for us on this so that,
Okay.
because I think that we're all in agreement that Bram Hall should do the work, but I think to deal with Mr. Shamir's concerns that he has, if you could put something together for us before next week.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the suggestion. Very good.
Madam Chairman.
Anybody
Madam
else?
Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I wondered, are we any closer, if you could direct us to the mayor, with regard to our search for a city engineer, so that we can put these discussions behind us at some point?
Mr. Mayor?
We have 3 interviews this week with potential engineers. Doesn't mean that one of those will necessarily be one, but we have 3, and we're continuing to advertise as well.
That's for the city engineer, and then we have another tech position open. Is that correct?
That is correct, yep.
I
So
have
we're
another
getting it.
question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Smith?
Relative to the proposals, were there proposals provided to us for engineering services outside of the regular engineering work that we expect from the city engineer?
That's correct. That's what these are. These are outside.
I mean, are there
Separate proposals.
proposals that we've gotten from other engineers? I understand that these are professional services, and I'm just wondering what other engineering services have bid on or provided us with engineering quotes for these contracts.
I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Mayor.
None for this particular work.
Have we, like at the beginning of the year or at some point, do we say, okay, we need proposals for engineering services for the year, and we choose an engineer to use?
So I think the idea, and I think it goes to what Mr. Shamir was saying, is that even when we get an in-house engineer, there's going to be contracted engineer services that we will require. I think the idea, and this is what Mr. Shamir is alluding to, is you can do a master services agreement with engineers, or you could bid out each one. Bidding out each one or getting proposals from each one is a very laborious process, slows everything down. So you would have to do like a master service agreement so that you would have engineers on standby. Otherwise, things would get delayed way too long to get it done.
And do we have one of those?
We do not have one of those currently, no.
Thank you.
Is there a plan for us to go forward in that direction, or are we going in a different direction, Mr. Mayor?
We've discussed that, but we're in the midst of these road projects. You cannot delay that at this point.
Could you repeat that, please?
We're in the midst of all these road projects.
Right,
To do otherwise would delay these projects. And many of these have grant fundings.
right, okay. So the public understands, you have an inspector, I'll be right with you, Mr. Shamir, in just a minute. I see your hand. So when you have an inspector, the contractor cannot do any work until the inspector's on site. So it can't be like, we work on trying to get RFQs and the contractor can't do his work. If the contractor can't do his work within the time frame that they agreed to do the work in, they're going to leave Avon Lake, they're going to go elsewhere. And we're going to end up waiting more. Yes, Mr. Shamir?
I proposed going out to tender and contracting a couple of companies under an MSA, Master Services Agreement, in October and November of last year. That would have given us roughly about 7 months, 8 months to go through the process and hire those companies so that we could go out to bid on every one of these work to 1 or 2 MSAs, approved contractors or awarded contractors, so we wouldn't have to go through this debacle. And if we plan, we're able to do. But if we talk about it and don't plan, an MSA may take 3 months, 4 months, 5 months to float an award. But if you don't start today, it won't happen. We will be back in the same place in 6 months and a year. As I stated, I mentioned it in November and October, and we still don't have it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? All right, then we're going to move on to the next one. Okay, the next one is design services and bid assistance for Walker Road Phase 6 to Bram Hall. Now, this is a proposal for professional engineering services pertaining to Phase 6, the Walker Road Rehabilitation Project. It's going through the Ohio Public Works Commission funding, which means that there's a low-interest loan, and there would also be a grant. I'm going to go into that detail. The project description, 2,250 linear feet of Walker Road from the east side of Jay Cox Road intersection to the radius returns on the east side of Lear Road intersection will be milled. Subgrade repairs will be performed. The scope of the work will include drainage, sub-drainage improvements, signal upgrades to standardize the preemption and vehicle detention at the Walker Road, Lear Road intersection, upgrading ADA ramps to the current standards as needed, linear grading, and paving markings. And the funds break down as follows. It's been estimated that the project will come to $1,037,426. However, the funding is broken down with OPWC, grant, $275,000, OPWC loan, $125,000, the City of Avon Lake, $637,426. The total construction cost is $876,976. Includes a construction contingency of $79,725. The scope of services for Bram Hall would be 2 tasks. Prepare construction plans, that's design services, for the proposed Walker Road Rehabilitation Phase 6 project. Number 2, prepare bid documents, including an advertisement to bid to procure competitive bids. And that lump sum would be $79,725 to get this project going. Do I see any comments here? Okay, we'll move on then to the next. The next one, design services and bid assistance for 2026 road program to Bram Hall. This is preliminary. This would be design services for the concrete pavement reconstruction. And these are concrete roads that cannot be repaired by just placing asphalt over it. These have to be completely rebuilt. These are concrete. Charleston Avenue, Chelsea Avenue, Surrey Lane, Brandon Place, Nottingham Drive, Britannia Parkway. Asphalt pavement reconstruction, June Street, Barton Street, York Street, Woodstock Avenue, Maple Cliff Drive, Herman Drive. And the total amount would be concrete, 4.7 plus million, asphalt streets, 3.2 plus million. And there will be additional, there will probably be additional streets added because we've identified some, Mr. Schmier, in Ward 1 in the West Winds that can't wait another year. They're going to have to be added on to this. So the design services comes to $425,000. The bidding assistance comes to $9,000 for a total sum of $434,000 of design services. Do I have any comments on this from my, yes, sir, Mr.
Shamir.
Just to make sure that I bookend this thing, my comments applies to number 10, 11, and 12. That's it. Thank you.
Including this one, correct. Got it. Anybody else? Okay. We are now going to move on to Mr. Smith with Planning Commission.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Planning Commission has 3 items on the agenda this evening. The preliminary plat for Avon Center Estates. This is a subdivision that Koff Construction is putting in back along the railroad tracks between number 11 Green and the Wildberry subdivision, if anybody knows where that is. So that's basically directly south of us from here almost, across the street, and in that very southern portion of the city. I have asked Mr. Saylor, who presented all of these items, and I didn't talk to him, but left him a message that if there's anybody that had any questions regarding any of these, to feel free to ask him the questions regarding this. This is an interesting development that's been many years in the making in terms of there were a lot of paper streets back in that area that will be vacated. We'll have to vacate those in order, and then we will have other streets that go around it. There were 7 conditions that the city wanted in regard to this. All of those conditions, 6 conditions, all of those conditions were agreed to by the developer and Mr. Saylor. So it's here and being forwarded to council for our approval. It is in your packet. You should be able to see it. If there's any questions, I would be happy to try to answer them, or if anyone would like to ask Mr. Saylor any questions. As I said, I would refer to him as an invited guest so that he could answer any questions that might be from council.
Mr. Smith, could you go through the 6 conditions of approval, because the public doesn't have the packet that we have? Just very briefly mention them, because there
Sure.
might be some people here that live in the Wildberry area.
Sure. They asked for clarification on the street frontages for specific lots number 331, 311, 301, 303, 310, 295, and 300, which are new lots that are going to be created out of the old 40-foot lots that are there. There is a cul-de-sac at the very end up by the railroad tracks, and they asked for it to be clear that, and they're going to call that Spyglass Court, staying in with the names of the golf courses throughout the country. And there's a cul-de-sac, and they wanted to make sure that cul-de-sac will be maintained by the homeowners association. There is and I don't know if any of you that are here tonight have mailbox units, cluster mailboxes. And that's one of the things that this development's gonna have, and they're gonna put those right in the beginning of the development as you go through it. And it's on a lot that will not be combined, because there is one, I guess they call them a holdout lot, that is actually buildable with 40-foot back there, but the lot next to it's gonna have the cluster mailbox unit as you go in. The right-of-way on Spyglass Court needed to be a minimum of 65 feet radius, and the developer had suggested having one backyard or one storm sewer lateral per 2 units, and they were doing that in order to try and to minimize the amount of trees that have to go down. But the planning commission decided they still wanted one, even though it would save some trees that way. And the developer agreed to all of those conditions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Smith among our colleagues? Or any questions for Mr. Saylor, who's in the audience, from our colleagues? Got off easy, Mr. Saylor. There are, for the people out in the hallway, there's about 12 chairs in here if you'd like to come in and join us. Thank you. Okay, do you want to go on to the next one, sir?
Certainly. The next one is the final plat for Sand Ridge Run, which is the new subdivision, a smaller subdivision that's going in across from, or next to the veterinarian's place, the Huntington Bank. That is they've asked for a final plat to be approved by council. I did bring this up at the last council meeting. I also wanted this for sure on the agenda today, and they're asking for a suspension of the rules. And they've asked for the suspension of the rules. I'll read from Mr. Flipkowski's email. With an effort to stay on current schedule track after longer than expected entitlement and land development cycle times, approving this request would allow for delivery of sold homes to customers within the phases in a timely manner, quicker funding to the city services, and overall will bring needed tax revenue dollars back to Avon Lake sooner than later. In other words, they would be able to transfer the properties to the people that have done the pre-sales and get that done a lot sooner. The other thing I did want to mention is that there's also been an issue, some of the needed financial situations have not been provided to the finance director. I know that today I did get an email that says that some of the bonding or the letter of credits have been there, but I know that Colleen downstairs is still looking for some things. And obviously, if we don't have what's needed in place before next Monday, we would not read it as an emergency. And again, Mr. Saylor represented that and would be happy to answer any questions. I don't know if he can answer any of the questions on the credits or not, but.
Okay, so Mr. Smith, if I could, you said it would not be an emergency. I think what you meant was it will not be suspension of the rule.
Yes.
Because it could still be an emergency. So that the public understands, builders have to have in their final plat, they have to pay for the grading. They have to pay for tie-in with the water. They have to put money in for the trees that are on public land. And it goes on and on and on. And not all of these have happened yet. So we're not in a position today, if we were going to vote, for example, to even vote on it. So hopefully by Monday, they'll have the monies in place with the finance director. If not, then it will simply be a first reading. We will continue until all those monies are paid. Any comments? Yes, Mr. Cos?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Mr. Smith, I have two questions. The first one is, what was the vote on this out of Planning Commission? And the second question is, were there any members of the public that spoke to this, either for or against it?
You gotta give me a second to look. You gotta give me a second to look at my notes. I think it was
Yeah, that's right.
unanimous on this one.
It's right in your packet, sir. It was voted 7-0. It's right in your packet.
Well, I wanted to look at my notes to make sure that that was correct, but that's okay.
From Kelly LaRosa.
Yeah, that's right, because I remember the second one did show the abstention by Dr. Ma. So it indicates that the approval is subject to confirmation by the finance director that all financial requirements, including performance bonds, maintenance guarantees, and applicable fees have been satisfied.
Thank you. And were there any members of the public that spoke to or
I
against?
don't remember there being any on this one.
I think so.
I don't remember that. Again, if I could get my notes, I could look at that for sure. Oh, no, I might have my notes here.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, could we move on to the next item while he looks at his notes?
Right, the next item is also his.
Yeah, basically, this is the same, item, although this is the final plat for Portside Townhouse subdivision, which, abuts to Hanford Boulevard. It's where the connection to Hanford Boulevard is going to, one day either be connected or not be connected, depending on a variety of items. And again, they have asked for the suspension of the rules and emergency passage of this matter. And again, there was some question with regard to some of the issues that, again, I would repeat, that subject to confirmation by the finance director that all financial requirements, including performance bonds, maintenance guarantees, and applicable fees have been satisfied.
Thank you. And Mr. Saylor, you're familiar with these and you know what needs to happen. Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Smith on this topic? Seeing none, we're going to go on now to short-term rental ad hoc committee. Mr. Cos, you're going to handle the discussion on this, is that correct? Or is-
I would defer
Mr.
to
Arnold?
Mr. Arnold to at least introduce the topic.
Okay, this is Mr. Arnold's ad hoc, go ahead.
Sure. This is, we had a short-term rental ad hoc committee meeting last Wednesday. That committee includes David Koss and Amy Gentry and myself. There was more discussion. We've had several meetings over the last 6 months or so. Topics that were discussed were whether or not we wanted to start inspections, registration. We discussed whether the city should limit the saturation of some Airbnbs within neighborhoods. We talked about the enforcement or penalties that might come up with Airbnbs. We had members of the public. We also had some Airbnb owners in the audience that came up and discussed some items with us. Turns out there's around 17 or 18 Airbnbs in the city of Avon Lake. That and also HB 109 is going through the state right now, and that I don't know if Mr. Koss wants to discuss that. I can kind of defer to him if he wants to discuss it. But right now, the state is going through and reviewing Airbnbs, and a lot of that is discussed about how much any municipality will have in either banning them or not allowing them. That's just going through right now. I would say it's probably nothing's gonna happen if it does happen for another 6 to 8 months. So we discussed that. That's basically it. And as a committee, we wanted to talk about Mr. Koss and actually brought it up about the potential of a moratorium on any new Airbnbs in town. I think specifically he was talking about having a moratorium on additional Airbnbs that are within 1,000 square feet or so of a current Airbnb. So we wanted to bring it up to the CCM tonight just to allow council to have discussions or questions about it. Obviously, a lot of people in the room have opinions on this as well. I'm kind of conflicted with it. We've reviewed many different cities and what they're currently doing, and they range from barring all Airbnbs in the city to not having anything in place like Avon Lake does. There have been a few issues with some of our Airbnbs across town over the last 2.5, 3 years. That's really all I have to say about that, and then just allow council, if anybody in council has any comments or administration if it has any questions or comments about it, but.
Okay, we'll send it back down then to Mr. Cos, is that your intent?
Sure.
Mr. Cos, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President and Mr. Arnold. So we had as Mr. Arnold stated, we had a very good discussion on a number of items pertaining to short-term rentals. And full disclosure, I've used Airbnbs, Verbos, absolutely love them. I think that it's a wonderful thing to have an option for outside of a hotel. And I think property owners in general should be able to have their properties utilized in such a fashion. As I'm one that uses one, who would I be to say that it can't be done elsewhere? But that being said, as Mr. Arnold did mention, the state of Ohio is currently looking at short-term rentals, and it's working its way through the State House. We don't expect anything in the immediate future on that. It could be several months as they put together their rules, their regulations, what municipalities can and cannot do with regards to short-term rentals. So there's a lot of questions that municipalities have to deal with. What can we do? What can we do? What can't we do? And if we do something, is it going to get reversed 6 months later when the state passes their law? Or do we put something in ahead of time where the state gives us the opportunity that if it's passed ahead of time, that municipalities can keep those laws in effect? We just don't know. And there's just a real sense of uncertainty of where this could go. And when it comes to moratoriums, that word kind of has a ominous feel to it, but it's something that the city of Avon Lake has utilized multiple times over the last number of years. Two of the recent moratoriums were ones that I sponsored. The first one was about 15 years ago when internet cafes were popping up all over the region and the state. If you remember internet cafes, if there was an open area in a shopping center, an internet cafe went there. And we don't see them anymore, but those were going everywhere. And there was a real concern that those types of businesses, which were not what Avon Lakers wanted to see, would soon be coming to the city of Avon Lake. Well, we learned that internet cafes were being reviewed and studied down in Columbus. They were actively working on legislation to regulate internet cafes. So what the city council did, what I did as the chair of the safety committee at the time, we passed a 6-month moratorium, with the reason being we're going to put a pause on this so nothing can come in and allow the state to give us the guidance and the regulations that we need. And that went into effect, and there are no internet cafes anywhere, and there was never one in Avon Lake. It was successful. The second one was the medical marijuana moratorium. And I see Mr. Stanek is in the audience, and he was actually our representative down in Columbus as that law was being written. When the medical marijuana law passed, I think it was 8 years ago, there was a lot of uncertainty about that as well, too. Well, what does that mean for municipalities? What can we do? What can we not do? Are they just going to come in and start doing this? So we had a lot of questions. There was a lot of confusion. And again, the city council decided we needed to push a pause button on this and allow for the state to give us some proper guidance on how to craft any legislation that we would need. We didn't want to overreact, and we didn't want to underreact. We needed time to study it, and we needed guidance. So that was the second moratorium. And the third one most recently was with the power plant location up on Lake Road. We put a moratorium in place on certain types of businesses from coming into that area. Because our concern is that if certain types of businesses that it's currently zoned for would come in there, it could limit the city in our abilities to market it the way that Avon Lakers and City Council envisions that area becoming. So we have had 3 successful moratoriums in this city that I don't think took away from a business's ability to operate a legal business, but it was a way that the city could pause things and allow for things to play out so we can make better decisions. So with that being said, the current idea of a moratorium, which was brought up at the last meeting, is not to stop all short-term rentals. Short-term rentals are here to stay, and they have a place in not only our community, but other communities as well, too. But what I think that we did not cover in our earlier discussions on this in the ad hoc committee, and what hasn't been fully explained to the city or studied on how it affects neighborhoods, is the idea of one particular part of short-term rentals, and that's saturation. How many short-term rentals in a small area or on a single street are we willing to allow? And I think that's a legitimate question. I don't think it's anti-short-term rental. I don't think that it's anti-property owner that wants to utilize his property and turn it into one. I think it's a pro-neighborhood approach. And I think that by putting together a 6-month moratorium, a targeted 6-month moratorium that says that any new short-term rentals would be prohibited over the 6 months within 1,000 feet of an existing short-term rental, allows for the neighborhoods to maintain their current level, It allows the state to come up with guidance that we can utilize of whether or not we want to act further on this in the future or not. I also think that if we didn't do that and you had multiple short-term rentals come in on a city street or on a city block, and we're going to hear from folks from James Circle tonight. If you're familiar with James Circle, it's, about a dozen homes over there? So a couple of these things could really change the character of a neighborhood. But I think that if we do this, it gives us the opportunity to press the pause button, take a deep breath, and really look at this and how we want short-term rentals. Do we want them anywhere and everywhere that there's a property available, or do we want to have some sort of control on how many can go on a street? Being one that I've said that I support short-term rentals, and I support the work that Mr. Arnold's doing in the committee with some of the other things that we're talking about. I think it's good stuff. While I could probably be okay with one being on my street or even next door, how many of us truly would want 2, 3, 4 within a close proximity? We know of one example already that is very much a possibility in the city, and there's just going to be more of these. So without this, I fear that if multiple ones are able to come in and get in close proximity, it will be almost next to impossible to reverse engineer that, depending on what the state does. So it would give us, like I said, it would give us the time to study it. It would give us the folks that are being affected by this, that are causing concerns, an opportunity to exhale on this. And we'll see where we come out in a few months on this. Also, moratoriums, which would pass by a majority vote of city council, could be reversed at any time. If the state comes up with legislation or they pass their issue sooner than expected, or some other circumstances change, city council within a single vote could lift that moratorium. So 6 months is a guide, really. You can always repeal that if there's a majority of circumstances change. But I hope that we can have a conversation on this, and I hope that we can give the benefit of the doubt to the people that are genuinely concerned about this right now. It's not something that's going to happen in every neighborhood, but they're genuinely concerned about this, and it really does affect their homes and their life. Short-term rentals are great. The people, renters, are mostly, for the most part, are really good people. But is that really what you want? Potential of 30 days a year, different people coming in on multiple sides of you on a daily basis? Is that why people move to Avon Lake? Is that why people buy their homes and raise their families? So that's my concern on this, and I welcome the conversation amongst my colleagues. I hope that there will be support for a targeted 6-month moratorium on new short-term rentals within 1,000 feet of an existing short-term rental. Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak on this topic? Mr. Shamir?
I just want to say that I fully agree with Mr. Koss, and I think the 1,000-foot is a good distance to ensure that no neighborhood is going to turn into a cluster of short-term rentals. Thank you.
Anybody down here want to speak on any topic? Mr. Zuber?
This is more of a law director question. I mean, has this been done before, a targeted moratorium? I'm just thinking about the legal aspect of it, that we're targeting these particular people and singling them out, and I'm just want to get some legal.
If I may.
Go ahead.
Yes, we've actually prepared short-term rental restrictions on a couple communities already that are presently in force. And they restrict the number in a certain location. They also specifically indicate the amount of time that's got to be in advance to have it inspected and the fees associated with it. And they've been upheld so far as that's concerned. It's communities that live mainly along the lakefront who are obviously renting out their facilities during the summer months. So I do have copies of some samples I can circulate to the council.
Mr. Zuber, go ahead.
The other thing is that unless we license these people, how are we going to have somebody go and open an Airbnb and then go and send the police over there and say, no, you're within 1,000 feet of another one, when we don't have anything at this point in time, any licensing or we don't have any feedback, and I guess that goes to my second question in regards to when we're gonna see some legislation on this. Does the committee have any timing on that, or have any proposed legislation that we can view
I think there's two
for the
questions.
future?
Mr. Zuber, there's two questions. I think the first one is directed to the law director. The second one's directed to Mr. Arnold.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr.
The licensing is a requirement. The cities who have put these in place have licenses that you have to file.
So we
And-
would have to pass a piece of
Exactly,
legislation
exactly.
licensing them first.
And once they're established, word of mouth goes out, and the people know about that at that point in time.
And I would have no problem if it's considered legal, but I think that we would have to pass some piece of legislation before we could put the moratorium on. I think that would probably might be some type of recommendation, or I just don't know if we could pass the moratorium if we don't know that somebody wants to open one. How are we gonna know that unless we know how many there are and where they're at? Exactly.
Mr. Eber?
Well, you pass the moratorium in order to give that an opportunity to make sure you don't saturate areas. And that's what some cities who have established these things have done, in order to give them time to actually pass legislation, look at, the council people will have to look at their various areas where short-term rentals may be advisable, whether they shouldn't be advisable, and how many in a certain location, certain ward or certain district. But that has been done in the ones that I've been familiar with the cities.
Mr. Arnold?
Yeah, so we've reviewed some other cities, Vermillion, Huron, even Bay Village, who doesn't allow short-term rentals. So
University Heights?
What?
University Heights.
University Heights, yeah. So there's many cities that have them, so it's my mission to get this done as quickly as possible as far as legislation goes. We're going on break here in another month, but I'd be willing to meet over the summer to get it done. I think the committee, the ad hoc committee, essentially, I mean, we're all on board with a lot of things we talked about already. So, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Mr. Zuber?
So we're looking at after the break for some type of legislation to be put forward on.
I mean, just because you're going to go on recess in the next 30 days, I would say probably yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Smith, anything from your end down there?
Yeah, I think that the regulations need to be put in place. I'm not a big fan of the moratorium going into place. I'd rather see us work hard to get the regulations in place first and get those done, and then we don't have we don't run into any potential legal problems with putting a moratorium in place. The moratoriums that Mr. Koss discussed were things like the at CEI where we're concerned about that area and the type of businesses that went there. The other one was, I remember one that we did with regard to adult entertainment. We did a moratorium, and that again has to do with the type of business. This is a business that I think there's not much that we can do about. I see that what Mr. Shamir provided had to do with these Airbnbs where people actually live in the houses as well. So my preference, if it's possible, is to ask the law department to come up with an ordinance that we put in effect as soon as we can, rather than a moratorium that covers the whole thing very quickly. But that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Gentry?
So I'm in agreement with putting the moratorium on place. I think we need to protect our existing homeowners as well as those who want to utilize their purchase as a business. But I do think we need to protect the homeowners while we are trying to come up with that legislation. I also wanted to ask the law director if he's aware if short-term rentals have to submit to Lorraine County.
No, not as it currently exists, no.
Because I know that rentals
Yeah.
do, but it wasn't clear to me
As of
whether.
now, no, I'm not aware of that. I will check into it though for you.
Mr. Cos?
Yeah, thank you. I would respectfully disagree that a registration is required before you can put a moratorium in on new ones. The previous examples that I gave, internet cafes, medical marijuana facilities, the city didn't register them. Those were legal operating businesses that could locate to wherever there's availability. We didn't say, well, we have to put something in place to regulate them or register them first. This is taking this is taking the current Airbnbs that are currently in operation right now, and they would be able to, operate just as they've always been, through our public media, and I see Mr. Ruiz in the audience today, through a passage of city council, and I'm sure that the local news media would pick it up as well too. The word is out there that any new Airbnb that wants to come into the city of Avon Lake, if it's within X amount of feet of an existing one, would be prohibited under this moratorium. The onus, really should be also on that new existing Airbnb that wants to come in and operate. With so many communities putting rules and laws in effect, they need to seek out information too. And it's not always the city that has to run to every little business and show them the rules. A new business or a new change of use of a property or whatever it might be has equal responsibility to say, is there anything prohibiting me from turning my home into an Airbnb? So I object to the idea that, we have to have a registration in place first and then go around and get the 17 or 18 registered and then map it all out and provide it. We don't have to do that. A moratorium gives us time. It's legal. We've done it before. If somebody challenges it, we are on solid footing. There's been a lot of communities that have put moratoriums for one thing or another in place over the years, and we have an example of doing it here in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Arnold?
I was just going to say too that we also are going to look at occupancy rate, to limit the Airbnbs to number of people that can stay over there as well in the building, or in the house, I should say. With this one, it's a little, we're talking about one house that's in one neighborhood in the city. So I've never met the owner of that house. I don't know if the people, I'm sure the people can speak to that, but that's part of me. We're relying on one owner of one house who owns an Airbnb next to him. That's what we're all talking about this, right? And then that he may or may not be purchasing a house that's next to that Airbnb. And none of us have met this owner of the house. He has not come in here, and I don't know if he's here tonight.
Might be here tonight.
But that's my only concern is that, we have all these people that are upset with how he's running his Airbnb and the amount of traffic and the other problems that they have, but he's not here to speak in his own behalf. So that's why and I understand that maybe this is a good reason to bring it up, and we're more than willing to talk about this and move this forward. But that's my only concern.
Thank you. So I'm going to summarize up a little bit so that everybody understands. City of Avon Lake Council, we belong to the Ohio Municipal League. The Ohio Municipal League educates us on upcoming House bills and Senate bills. And this topic, short-term rentals, is in both the House. It's HB 109, if you want to look it up. And it's also in the Senate, Senate Bill 104. And they're almost identical, to be honest with you. And one of the things that the Ohio Municipal League gave us to summarize is that they believe this is going to pass either in the fourth quarter of this year or the first quarter of next year. And they've already identified some areas the city should be looking at, okay? One of the things that they said is the analysis of the bill has been introduced, and the legislation prohibits local governments, like us, from outright prohibiting short-term rentals, creating a lottery system, you can't do that, to see who's eligible to operate a short-term rental. You can't use zoning laws to prohibit short-term rentals. You can't restrict the number of rentals an individual may operate, and you require the owner of a property to occupy, and you don't have to require the owner of the property to occupy that property. They could own various properties and live over here, okay? The changes that both the Senate and the House are proposing are as follows. One, grandfathers tax regulations existing before the effective date. So right now, the City of Avon Lake does not tax, we don't have a bed tax. So if we're going to be putting a bed tax in place, we would not lose it. And they give us up to 7.5% that we could tax on short-term rentals that oftentimes are not turned over by the owner, but by the organization that they belong to, whether it's Airbnb or one of the other ones. What else do they allow? They allow municipalities to suspend short-term rentals up to 30 days if they violate a rule. And if they violate 3 times, they could be held out and not be able to be in Airbnb for 180 days. These are things that both the House bill and the Senate agree with. The other thing that they both agree with, they raise the licensing fee to a one-time $50 fee, and it bars, prevents local governments from charging additional license renewals. So the only time that you have a renewal is if you sell your property and somebody else buys it. What else do these two bills, the Senate and the House bill, have that are exactly the same? They allow local governments to charge a registration fee. Oh, I already said that. Let's see. And I'm concerned with what has been projected, not that I agree or disagree, but I'm concerned that we won't be allowed to do saturation, because here's what it says we can no longer do. We cannot impose an annual fee, renewal fee. We cannot use zoning to prohibit or limit short-term rentals. And wouldn't that be in our planning zoning code?
It would be, but you also got to remember we're a charter city, so some of those are not for non-charter city. So what you're talking about with the state.
Is with a non-charter city, so with the charter we could get around it? Okay. I just want to make sure that we keep these things in mind. What can we do? Well, we've talked about raising or even having a licensing fee, which we don't have. That could be up to $50. And we talked about the taxes, okay. And we talked about putting rules into place that they would have to be inspected and that they would have to register. So I'm in favor of having inspections, registration here. I'm not in favor of a moratorium in this particular instance, but if my colleagues put one forward and it passes, then it passes. But I just wanted to voice where I'm at here. Is there any other discussion? Yes, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I guess through you, to the law director, how long would it take to put together a succinct ordinance to cover this, as opposed to throwing a moratorium out there and then taking it away in 2 months?
Week to 10 days.
A week to 10 days
A
to
week
put
to
the
10
actual
days?
ordinance.
Yeah, I can get an ordinance drafted. I've already, like I said, done 2 draft ordinances for a couple of other cities, so.
I think if we could get this ordinance in and it's right in what we think it is, then I think that's the better way to go myself. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm looking at the calendar, so everybody understands why I'm looking at the calendar. The 14th of July is our last meeting before we go out for summer recess. So, Mr. Ebert, if you could put one together by, give me a date. So
End of the month.
if you get it together by the 30th, that is a 5th Monday, therefore we don't meet. Therefore, it could be ready for a collective committee meeting on July the 7th. And it could come for the first reading on July the 14th. Mr. Cos?
Yeah, thank you. Final statement on this. I just need some clarification. So we're talking about putting an ordinance together. Is it the thoughts and the opinions of members of council that this proposed legislation that would be brought forward would deal with saturation? Or is this just a registration? Is it gonna solve the problem I'm trying to solve?
Mr. Ebert?
If I have an ordinance to draft, you're gonna have a lot of discussion, because some of the issues, there's gonna be saturation in the various areas you're gonna look at, in the various wards, the city is gonna look at that, to take a look at that. Registration, yes, can be part of it, but the saturation is gonna be an issue and maybe subject to a lot of discussion. So you may not get a pass by recess, is what I'm simply saying.
Mr. Cos, I can see that you
And
have.
hence the need for a moratorium, because there's a lot to discuss. I'll get with the law director and other members of council. We'll figure out a way forward. Thank you.
So if we could include I just want to make sure I have a summary here. And council members, if I'm not including your point, please bring it forward. So, Mr. Ebert, we're looking at a tax, we're looking at a registration, we're looking at a process, that there would be an inspection and registration, right? If there would be a violation, what would happen? My council members would like to have saturation in there. You said that we can do that. Is there something else that I have not mentioned? Yes, Mr. Shamir?
I actually have a question. Can it be a moratorium that would go into effect until we approve the ordinance? So it would effectively kick out the moratorium upon approval of the ordinance?
Correct. Moratorium be terminated upon passage of the ordinance.
So if that be the case, then can the law director have a moratorium language that they can present to us at the CCM, at the next CCM? Is that satisfying people? That would be kicked out when an ordinance would be passed. Mr. Zuber?
As long as we have a draft ordinance, I have no problem with a moratorium, but I just,
Just a second, I want to make sure Mr. Ebert hears you. Mr. Ebert, could you?
if we have, I have no problem talking about the moratorium if we start moving on the ordinance. That's my concern is putting a moratorium on something that already exists. When we did moratoriums in the past, we didn't have any grow shops or strip clubs or any of those things that we put moratoriums on. They didn't exist in town. And now we do, and I'm just concerned that if we just do a moratorium without companion legislation, at least in the works, we may have legal issues. And but I think that there's no reason why we couldn't have both going at the same time.
I believe, my understanding is that the law director is working on both. He says yes.
That's correct.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Gentry, yes.
can you also add inspection and occupancy to the list of criterion to put into the legislation?
Yes, we will.
Mr. Ebert said yes. His microphone's not on, so you can't hear him back
Yes,
there.
I'm writing it down as we speak.
Yes. Anything else, council? Members of council? Very good collaboration. Like it a lot. All right, now we're going to be at legislation. We're ready? Okay. The third reading, ordinance number 25-109. Ms. Ross Marin, can you read by title only, please?
An ordinance amending planning and zoning code sections 1214, 1224, 1226, 1234, and 1236.
Mr. Smith, is there anything that you want to add to your discussion here that you haven't had in other meetings?
Yes, I would say thank you to Ms. Gentry, because we are gonna make that minor change that she suggested at our second reading. That language should have included that, so that will be passed on its third, hopefully passed on its third reading. Thank you.
Very good. Council people, any other discussion on this one? Seeing none, we're going to go on now to second readings. Ordinance number 25-112. Ms. Ross Marin, read by title only.
An ordinance enacting codified ordinance chapter 1470 demolition.
And Ms. Gentry, is there anything that you want to add in your discussion here?
Nothing to add. This demolition ordinance is to help us, the city, stay, ensure that when we do demolish buildings, we keep the citizens safe.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, then we'll move on to the next one. Ordinance number 25-113. Ms. Ross Marin?
An ordinance amending codified ordinance chapter 1438 licensing of contractors defined and codified ordinance chapter 1468 unsafe buildings.
Ms. Gentry, any further discussion?
These are companion pieces of legislation for the demolition ordinance and reference the demolition ordinance in those two.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go on to resolution number 25-115. Mrs. Ross Marin?
A resolution adopting and declaring the 2026 tax budget and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Zuber, any further discussion?
Just that this will be a suspension of the rule. We have to get this to the county prior to the middle of July when we go on recess.
Okay, any further discussion by anybody? Okay. Ordinance number 25-116. Mrs. Ross Marin?
An ordinance amending codified ordinance chapter 220 council.
Thank you. I'm the sponsor of this particular one, and the only things I want to say is that there's a lot that has been changed in our ordinance, and anybody that would like to have a copy of it, you can have a copy. You can see all the red lines that are throughout here. It's 18 pages. Every page has massive red lines, And I know that there's been discussion that the only thing we want to do is to prohibit the public from speaking, and that's so far from the truth. What we want to do, you've all been so patient tonight, we want to bring public comment to the front of the meeting. And we want to move it from 3 minutes to 5 minutes on any topic, not limit it just to what is on the agenda. So that's what's taking place. We also are defining what the order of business will be and bringing in our consultants and allowing specialists in their field to be able to speak. We have also expressed when our meetings will take place and when there will be an organizational meeting. So the Board of Elections, you just can't go in and elect someone. You have to also have those votes to be certified. And the way our code read previously, it didn't take into consideration the date of the Board of Election that they have to take in order to certify. So we've made our ordinance, if it should go through, in compliance with what the Board of Elections has to say. We talked about regular meetings, we talk about collective committee meetings, we talk about work sessions, we talk about executive sessions, we talk about special meetings. We also talk about how we are going to be keeping order within the council, or to move the business of the city along. Any further discussion by anybody up here? Okay. At that point in time, we are now moving over to public input. And there's a lot of people here. You can come up to the podium, give us your name, the city that you're from, and introduce your topic. And you're going to see that there is a clock up on the top. It will begin to go to yellow when you have 30 seconds left. Okay, and then at red, your 5 minutes are up. We have a question from the audience. No, I like to talk. Oh, you could just come on up, take one at a time, come on up. Thank you. You want to start?
Sure. Paul Wilson, Hanford Boulevard, Avon Lake, Ohio. I'll begin with an observation on the Port Side final plat approval that was kind of discussed. Mr. Smith brought this up. First of all, there's a mistake in it. It talks about the connection of Hanford to a potential circle. Well, the circle's been off the table for 6 months. I hope you all read it and saw that. It's pretty obvious to me. But bigger than that, it's very wrongly worded, and I'm going to outline the way it appears to me. It seems to me to be another attempt to skew the debate over connection of Portside to Hanford Boulevard. The legislation that you just talked about says a temporary traffic barrier was installed on Hanford Boulevard at the request of residents and will remain in place pending the completion of a traffic impact study. Not true. The exact wording in the MOU, which I have right here, and was signed by the mayor, law director, and Mr. Philip Kowski from Pulte, says, in response to the public debate regarding the connecting roadway, the city desires that a gate be installed on the connecting roadway that will not allow vehicular traffic to traverse over the connecting roadway to Lear Road, except for emergency vehicles and road maintenance vehicles. Well, the word gate, not chain, not anything else, the word gate is underscored there, highlighted. It was to be done within 30 days of the completion of the roadway. It's been far longer than that. Another thing to consider is that there is currently no way for emergency vehicles or maintenance people to get through there. There's concrete barriers there. Clearly, a gate would allow that. So there's a safety concern right there. You promised a gate, and let me be honest with you, all the folks that I'm here with, we want it. You've gotten $15,000 from Pulte to do it. Thank you to Mr. Filipkowski and Mr. Saylor for their cooperation in that. But there's another concern, I think, and possibly a more troubling one. We have been promised from the start a seat at the table when the data, albeit, as I pointed out, I believe, flawed data, is released. Now I've uncovered emails among Mr. Kaz, Mr. Shamir, Mayor Spatzel, and Aaron Gilliott, project manager at Trans Systems, on how to interpret the data before it's released to the public. How in the world do you allow a company that did questionable, if not flawed, data research have a seat at the table? I suspect it's to figure out how to explain the anomalies, and they're really not a problem. Well, they are a problem. Mr. Kaz referred to it as an internal meeting. Given the lack of notification to us, I call it a secret meeting. And that's no way to do business for any city. It certainly only adds to the distrust among us that you guys have created through this entire process. We came to you with our concerns. We were polite about it. We certainly came in good faith. In my view, we haven't been treated in good faith. Thanks for listening.
Anybody else want to come forward? Anybody else want to come forward on any topic? Just give us your name and your city.
Neil Dorncott, 705 Schiller Court. And I'm going to go back to the question on the short-term rentals. And my question is, in the legislation being presented or being drafted, is there anything in there by the local municipality or the state that says that HOAs and condo associations can override those rules and, control their own destiny on who comes into their developments?
Excuse me. I believe we will take a look at it, but I believe an HOA can override the specifics concerning that, because you have your own association as far as fences, as far as setbacks, as far as no sidewalks, et cetera. But I will take a look at that.
And then it would have to be in their declarations?
Yes,
And the state wouldn't overrule that either?
not in the HOA if it's HOA, but I will take a look at it specifically and get it back to you.
Okay, so this is for existing and,
Sir, would you take my card so we can get right back to you?
Sure.
And then you can email me and I'll give it to Mr. Ebert. That way we can have communication.
great, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next person, come on up for any topic. Anybody else want to speak?
Vince Canonico, Avon Lake. I'd like to echo the sentiment expressed by my neighbor, Mr. Orlowski. I've been very disappointed about how this board has treated myself and my neighbors. It's been, quite frankly, disingenuous. We received one excuse after the other. For example, we were first told that we really couldn't do this, we really couldn't, have a gate or fail to connect these two roadways because it was unfair to Pulte. They were the last man standing, they were the developer, it was unfair to them. And then Pulte got up and said, well, we really don't care. We just want to build our houses, we don't care if this is connected. So that excuse, this council's excuse faded away. And then you went to the connectivity plan. You said, well, there's this connectivity plan. We have to follow our connectivity plan. That's why we can't have a gate or a lack of the cut through. So we asked to see the connectivity plan, which we all assumed was like a 20-page document done by a traffic engineer, very detailed, right? No, it was a photocopy of a 5-year-old map with some dots drawn on it. So when everybody realized that there was really no connectivity plan, all right, then you came up with another one. You said, well, the problem really is that your development only has one way in and one way out, and there are safety concerns with that. And then we brought it to your attention that there are 6 or 7 other developments in the city that only have one way in and one way out. And guess what? Some of you live in them. Right? So that excuse fell by the wayside. All right? And then somebody asked for a traffic study. Said, well, what we really need is a traffic study. Okay. So you said, okay, we'll do a traffic study. And then based on that data, we'll make a decision about whether there should be a gate or no gate. And then I asked you over and over again, how are you going to use this data? What would the data have to say for you to say there should be a gate? What would the data have to say for you to say there shouldn't be a gate? I've asked that more than once. You know how many times I've got a single answer? 0. You won't tell us. And that's because you've already made a decision. And you're going to try to use the data to justify it no matter what. Now, if I'm wrong about that, then just tell us now. How are you going to use the data, right? As Mr. Orlowski indicated, the MOU that you signed, okay, commits you to putting in a gate within 30 days of a connection. It's been probably 60 days. Just do what you said you would do. Thank you.
Anybody else on your topic? So that everybody understands, I know you're excited. We are trying to move along, and so I'm going to ask you if you could please restrain from clapping. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on any topic?
Ken Yankel, Cassuth
Come on up, Ken.
Drive. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm sort of going to be a little redundant here and echo what they have said, but I'm going to go a little farther than that. You paid for a traffic study, which was very well outlined as far as the procedures that were to be followed. And those procedures were not followed. The study is flawed. Private industry would throw it out and wouldn't pay for it until it was done correctly. And they certainly wouldn't use it to make any decisions. So I'm asking the council to confirm that they're not going to pay for the study until it's redone and redone properly. Or if they can negotiate just to get rid of it altogether, if they feel they don't need it in order to make this decision about whether that gate is opened or not. And the second thing is, I have to echo the thing about the fact that Vince has asked, I've asked, numerous meetings for you to give us the metrics on the basis of how you're going to evaluate that data. Is it a 50% increase on traffic on Hanford? Is it 100%? Is it 200%? At what threshold is the gate going to be mandated to maintain the quality of life and the safety in the neighborhood for the people who live there? And we would like an answer to that. And my question to you is, when are we going to get the answer? What date are we going to get an answer? And when are you going to tell us whether or not you're going to have this traffic study redone, or you're going to cancel it altogether and not pay the vendor to do that? And that's it. Other than that, you guys have been great.
Is there anybody else that'd like to come up and speak on any topic?
Hi, my name is Debbie Yu, Frust Drive, Avon Lake. I want to reiterate that the MOU that was adopted by this council under Ordinance 24-158 specifically states at paragraph 3 that the gate would be installed within 30 days of connection. As I've indicated through the photograph I submitted at the council meeting last Monday, that the connection was made on April 15th of 2025. Over 30 days have passed. In fact, it's been 9 weeks or 63 days, and there's still no gate. I heard at the last council meeting that instead of a gate now, that the intention is to put in a chain. A chain, as we all know, is not a gate. This is really disingenuous. A chain can enhance the function of a gate, but it does not serve as a gate. In fact, if you look at your own MOU, which you drafted, you had indicated, you had defined what a gate is, and a chain does not meet that definition. Therefore, I would ask that this council immediately install a gate. Pulte has generously already allotted $15,000 to the city of Avon Lake to build that gate within 30 days, so the money is there. I don't know why a gate is not being placed as agreed on under the MOU. The money is there, put in the gate. I also want to reiterate my concerns regarding the contract between the city of Avon Lake and Trans Systems on the traffic impact analysis. In the interest of time, I want to incorporate by reference my comments made at last week's council meeting, the June 9th, 2025 council meeting, which summarizes the many instances where that contract has been breached. And as I asked at last week's meeting, I asked that this council to hold Trans Systems accountable and to provide us with the traffic impact study as stated. As you full well know, and as you know from my neighbor's comments, that the traffic impact study was done at a time when the majority of school was out. It was during bike week, and then Trans Systems, even though they bid for this job and indicated that they can do this job, they did not have the number of cameras available to take data at the same time. They admit that some of the cameras failed, and so they just chose their own date and told you when they were going to do that, do their last Saturday. They are accountable to the city of Avon Lake and to the to the residents and to the taxpayers of Avon Lake. We are not accountable to them. Yet, what I hear is anomalies. I hear that you're giving excuses to Trans-System. Well, you couldn't help it. They couldn't help the broken cameras. They couldn't help it. We tried as best as we could. We didn't know. We're not experts. You paid a substantial amount of money to Trans-Systems to get this traffic study done correctly so that we have the data not only for this Hanford Boulevard connection, but also to help Avon Lake guide its decisions for the southeast quadrant of Avon Lake into the future. You do not have that data. That contract is in breach, and Trans-Systems should be held accountable and provide the data and the study that was promised and paid for at their expense. Now, time and time again, you hear these same comments, and we are in a representative government. And so what that means is, as you all know, you have been voted in order to represent your constituents, not the developers, not the vendors. You are here to hear what we have to say and to address and voice our concerns. Although many of you sitting on council are doing that job, but not everyone is, because we are hearing words like last man standing, poor Pulte, poor Trans-Systems. Their equipment failed. So therefore, I ask you in the last few seconds that I have up here to ask yourself, which side are you on? Are you representing the citizens of Avon Lake, or are you representing the vendors and the developers and everyone else? And if you find yourself on the wrong side, you do have time to correct yourself and to represent the citizens of Avon Lake and course correct yourself. So please ask yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Could somebody else come up? Can anybody else come forward on any topic? Would anybody else like to come up one more time? Any topic? Come on up, sir.
Scott Kennedy, resident of Avon Lake. I am coming up here to discuss the James Circle matter that has obviously gotten the ear of a few people here that I'm going to be personally and professionally involved with. The house that you are all worried about that's going on the market, I am representing that owner. We have contacted the Airbnb owner next door. He has told us unequivocally that he is not interested in purchasing the house next door. He did not say why. He just said he didn't want another one, whether or not it's the market, whether it's the uproar of neighbors. But at the end of the day, we're also not going to be selling it to an investor that typically does not pay fair market value for properties in Avon Lake when they're looking at cash flow properties and everything else. That does not mean that if I get an offer presented to me, that it will not be presented to my clients, and if it is acceptable, they will accept it. But like I said, right now we are not expecting an offer from him. So whether or not decisions are being made for moratoriums and trying to push something through because of this house coming on the market and everybody's freaking out about it and, knocking on my client's door and, up in arms and thinking that there's already been a handshake deal done behind doors, that has not happened. And we are not expecting it to happen based on conversations we've had with that Airbnb owner. I guess in regards to also the Airbnb rules and regulations and being in real estate for 23 years, I understand there's a building code and there's typically a maximum occupancy for houses in Avon Lake, almost in every city in the state of Ohio. Is there?
We have a building code, but there's no occupancy for single-family residents.
Okay, so it's not?
Mrs. Gentry already checked that one out.
So having 20, like whether it's fire and safety, like fire safety, having 20 people in a house?
Unless it's a nursing home, no. For single-family.
Okay. All right. Well, that being said, maybe that's something else, but if everybody is trying to jump onto a moratorium, and it sounds like it's specifically for this house, talking about 1,000 feet, You know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that which property we're talking about. Obviously, the house is going to go on the market. My clients, who also, full disclosure, are also family members of mine, they are choosing to move for personal reasons, not solely because of the Airbnb next door. Obviously, it is an eyesore. It is something that causes traffic disruption, but that is not the main reason. When they came in, short history lesson for them, and it shouldn't matter. She was pregnant. They had to find something. This was a house available, and her husband is 6'7" and doesn't quite fit in the house. They have 2 young kids. They need more space, so they've made the tough decision to buy something and to put their house back on the market. It's going to be a tough sell because they just bought it 6 months ago. But short of that, the other thing I guess I will make comment to, which probably is not a very popular conversation, but regarding the Hanford connection, and first time I'm kind of hearing about this. I know it's been talked about, but I think it was 7 years ago when the Wood Bridge development was being done with the horse farm. And this room was a lot more packed with people because of the Wood Bridge connection to Parkside in the Bridgeside development. And everyone talked about safety, egress of vehicles for people going to that part of town. I guess my question is that if that is still a thing, then why is there a gate up? Because there's also a convenience aspect of it. From the standpoint of maybe not the people that live on Hanford Drive in those 2 developments, but everybody other homeowner that lives connected to that, whether it's Bridgeside, Hunt Club, Southport, whatever the Pulte one is called, they're all connected. It's still a convenient aspect. And yes, there's 5 or 6 subdivisions that only have one way in, one way out, but there's a lot of developments, mine own included, that has always had stubbed out streets, that those are always open for future development. And if it's a city street and it's being maintained by the city, then everybody in the city should be able to use that city street. So I know it's probably not a popular opinion in this room, but at the end of the day, that's still a public city street, and everybody else that sits behind it should have the ability to use that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to come up on any topic? Okay, come on up, sir.
Kevin Long, James Circle, Avon Lake. I'm in favor of the moratorium because of the Airbnb that's next door. When Mrs. Jones passed away, where the Airbnb is located, the gentleman next door went next door and asked if he could buy the house because he wanted to bring his parents over to live next to him. Well, that wasn't the case. They sold it to him pretty much at a discount too, because it was going to be for a family member, and then he turns it into an Airbnb. We have seen, if any of you have been over to James Circle, it's a great street. We were lucky enough to buy over there 25 years ago. We were one of the youngest families there at the time. Raised 3 kids there. Traffic is at a minimum. Kids could play out in the street. But with this Airbnb, not anymore. It is, they're out till 2 in the morning. There's a hot tub in the back. They have sheets that are on cords that cover the back. They have 3 huge spotlights in the backyard. There are cars lining the street all the time. There's room for 3 cars in the driveway. We've seen, they had a graduation party there, both sides of the streets. There was litter in the lawn the next morning. They park on your tree lawn. You hear foul language, you hear all kinds of things. It really takes the value and the aesthetic of living in a quiet street in Avon Lake to a very bad thing. It's going to cause our property values to go down, and I don't believe him for a second that he wouldn't purchase that house next door to his Airbnb, because he's already made it known that he wants 5 of them in the city of Avon Lake for each one of his daughters. And to put a stop into this so that no more on James Circle can be, the moratorium would be great until we get something in place. Thank you.
Anybody else, any topic? Anybody else, any topic? Come on up, sir.
Mark Hubaker, James Circle, Avon Lake. I support everything he just said, for one thing. The concern, I live 2 doors down from the subject Airbnb, and I actually live right next door to the owner. His name's Marcus, if anybody cares. The concern I have is the traffic and the parking on the streets, and that bash they had a couple, 3 weeks ago. They were parked on both sides of the street, both the eastern part and the western part of James Circle. They completely filled that horseshoe drive on both sides, and I just asked that officer right there, and he tells me that you're not allowed to park on the hydrant side of the street.
That's correct.
So my first question is, I'm surprised that a lot of people didn't get tickets for parking on the hydrant side. The noise is one thing. Like I said, I'm 2 houses down, so I can deal with that. But I've had 2 occasions already where they partially blocked the apron of my driveway. And that's irresponsible, for one thing, and it's annoying as heck. I could still get in and out if I had to, but they obstructed, my driveway. And the other issue I have with that is on garbage day, which is Monday, if there's a car blocking the can, the Kimball guys aren't going to get out of their trucks to do anything. So if there's a car blocking, and this has happened on a few occasions, I don't get my garbage picked up. And that's annoying as well. So I just, I reiterate some of the other comments. I was here at the Wednesday meeting we had last week, and I think, the moratorium idea, whatever can be done like ASAP, I'm in favor of it, and instead of 1,000 feet, I'd suggest 2,000 feet. Just because. So that's what I had to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come up on any topic? This is your time. Come on up. Any topic? I see some smiles in the back. Okay. Thank you.
Brian Macavino, James Circle, 220. I'm going to agree with everything that they've been saying too. It's just about saturation. That's it. We're going to have to deal with the one they've already got there. So it is what it is. But if we can keep more of them far away, that's all we're looking for. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any topic? Come on up, sir.
Hi. Richard Bates, James Circle, Avon Lake. I'd have to agree with the other speakers, and I like what I've heard today in the process. We owned an Airbnb down in South Carolina 4 or 5 years ago, 2019. They had a lot of the same, there was a registration process, there was a tax, you had to have a fire alarm, smoke alarm, CO2 detector tied into the fire department, and then on-site parking, or there were limitations on the number of Airbnbs in a neighborhood and in the city in general. I think, several weeks ago when there was that graduation party, somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 cars back on that circle. Fortunately, the party went off early, somewhere in the 7 o'clock area, but that probably would have meant 80, 100 people, which for a graduation party, you can have very popular people there, but still it's an awful lot. And then I think our recent neighbors that purchased down at the end next to the Airbnb, I think some of the situation that they've had, whether directly impacted by the whole situation. But I appreciate your expedited process on this, and to see if you can get a regulation in place to get some parameters on it.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Anybody else on any topic? A lot of people here, a lot of opinions. Gonna give you another round. Again, do we have everybody who wants to speak? Okay. And I appreciate everybody coming forward. Again, if there's something that you think of that you'd like to talk to either a staff member or council, please put your name on the list up there or grab one of our cards and we'll be happy to facilitate that. At this point in time then, we're gonna adjourn and we'll be back here next Monday. Thank you so much for coming. Meeting's over.